the hate army
Big
troll.
ups to Hate Army.
Bro.
Hate Army.
Shout
that
out
guy.
to
Hate Army.
Hate.
Good vibes to the
Shout
Hate
out to
Army.
Hate.
Shout out to Hate.
Shout out
Shout
for
out to
hate.
Hate.
Shout out to Hate.
Shout out for
Shout
hate.
out for hate.
People are now playing Spider-Man 2. The review copies have gone out. And it is official. One of the early reviewers have said they completed Spider-Man 2, 100% of the game, at 30 hours. 30 hours of playtime. 100%ed it. Did all the missions, all the side content, everything. Okay? And the funny part about that is, I'm not kidding, there's some people who are very happy about this, and there's some people who are very upset. It's very interesting to see this dichotomy of opinions when it comes to game length in the modern era. Some people now, it seems anyway, have been almost like programmed in their heads to think that every video game must be incredibly lengthy. Every video game you buy must have 40 to 80 hours of content. And if you buy a video game that doesn't have that much content, you're getting ripped off. It didn't used to be like that. You know, when I started on YouTube 15 years ago, you'd be lucky to get a game that had 10 hours of content. And I mean that too. Like, games were darn short back then. You'd buy a first-person shooter, it would be have a 5-6 hour campaign, and then you go online and you play the online for a few hours and realize it's no Call of Duty and you never play it again. You know? Or a narrative action-based game, a platformer. They were very short. You know, it's funny because you talk about games like the classics. You're aware that BioShock wasn't a super long game, right? It wasn't. But people have these nostalgic feelings about these games back in the day. Like, oh, they're so, you know. No. It wasn't until the midlife era of PS4 and Xbox One that games all, for some reason, started becoming insanely lengthy with crazy amounts of padding and content to extend the length of the game. And the question is, when you get these games that are 40 to 80 hours long, is it quality over quantity or quantity over quality, right? How many games have we seen in the last several years where, oh, there's all this content, but what's the point? I'm sorry, a lot of people will be so upset with me, but I'm going to say it right now. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It's an outstanding game, don't get me wrong, all right? I enjoyed the major dungeons, I enjoyed the plot points, I enjoyed looking at the glyphs and things, the story was great. But there is an insane amount of content in Tears of the Kingdom that has absolutely no reason to be in the game. It doesn't add anything. It's just there to say there's more content. So you can play Tears of the Kingdom for 100 hours, or you can play it for 40. You'll get the exact same story, the exact same major points of the gameplay, and you really won't get much added experience. You know what I'm saying? From the game if you played the 100 hours. But you could have played it for 100 hours. What was the point, though? Right? That's what I think the problem is today. Games that have the content, but the content is essentially bloat. It bloats the length of your game artificially, so you can say your game is longer than it really should be because it's not meaningful content, you see? Now, the worst case are games that force you to play the bloat to beat the story. At least in Tears of the Kingdom, you can ignore the bloat. You don't have to play it all. You can just skip most of it and just get right to the meat of the game. But what about a game like Mafia 3? Oh my God, that was the worst case scenario where the game actually forced you to do base takeovers and boring ass repetitive garbage to just unlock the next story mission. That shit was unbearable. That was, in my 15 years, that's the worst case that I can think of where a game that forced you to do busy work shit to even see the end of the game, and that was annoying. Now, in the case of what we're talking about here with Spider-Man 2, the game is 30 hours long if you do everything. But does that mean that the story is like 15 hours long, maybe 20? What do you think about that? You know, I look at it and I'm like, well, can I be honest? I think that's good. I think that 30 hours for an open world New York City game that's going to have some, you know, content, optional missions and takeover, probably some side missions and things, but also an interesting story, good graphics and everything, good combat. I think the 40 to 60 hour mark, that's when you start to feel the bloat and you start to feel a little bit of the repetitiveness of it being too long. You know what I mean? As gamers, right? What we need to start doing is judging quality. No, enough of the quantity. You know what I mean? Take a look at Starfield right now. Currently in Starfield, I'm around 35 hours into the game. Okay? So far, What has been fun in Starfield? The main plot and the faction quests. What has sucked in Starfield? Anytime you have to go into space to do space combat or anything else, anything involving building your ship, anything involving research, anything involving crafting and gathering of resources. So you look at that dichotomy, you're like, so wait a minute. They just streamlined the game to be a story-based game and take out all that crap, it would be a better game. Yeah, it would. It actually would. Because you could actually get to the meat of what's important and fun about the game. You know, maybe Starfield should be a 40-hour game, not a 100-hour game. And maybe people would like it better if it was a 40-hour game. And you didn't have all that fancy shit they tried to shove in that's not good, right? There's so much content that's bloat that you don't need to have in that game that doesn't add anything. My wife beat Starfield, and she's like, I never once even figured out what outposts were. She's like, I don't even know what they do. There was no point. It never added anything. I did all the faction. She did all the faction quests. She did all the story. She did all the companion quests. She's like, I did all the stuff that was fun. I've never touched an outpost. I don't even know what it's there for. Oh, really? And she also told me research. She never made use of any research in the game. Does nothing. You don't need it. It's completely superfluous. Oh, that's interesting. And by the way, she sunk a ton of time. I think she played like 80 hours or something like that, you know? So that's what I mean. Maybe the problem today is that game developers are so dead set on quantity that they're just not making quality anymore, you know? And if maybe, just maybe, game developers would focus just on the quality, then the games would be a little shorter, but they'd be better, and guess what would happen? We wouldn't have $40 zillion budgets to make a video game anymore. We wouldn't have 7-year development cycles where they announced Starfield back in like 2012 or whatever the fuck it was, and it took them so long to pump it out that by the time it comes out, there's no way it can live up to modern expectations. Maybe, just maybe, if we had actually people who were directing these game projects intelligently, rather than with these ginormous scopes of what they want to do that they can never live up to that kind of hyper expectation, these games would be much better. I still remember to this day, one of the earliest games I played on YouTube was called The Darkness 2. Alright? At the time, this game was incredibly short. It was, I think the story was around 6 hours long, and then it had online play that was quite fun. And I remember when I played The Darkness 2, almost no one was covering it on YouTube because it was so short. And I finished playing it, and I was told everyone, that's one of the best stories I've experienced in a video game since I've done YouTube. It was so good. It was unique. It was interesting. It was intriguing. It didn't overstay its welcome. It had multiple levels of interest and twists in the plot and cool gameplay and gore, if you like that kind of stuff. It was well done. And even though that game was incredibly short, it still resonates with me today. I still remember it because it was so well done. It didn't matter that it was so short. You know what I'm saying? So when I hear, oh, Spider-Man 2, all right, is going to be 30 hours long. Right? I say, okay, good. Maybe that means I can play Spider-Man 2 and still play other games and also have a life. Right? I'm not investing in the Spider-Verse for the next 17 months where I have to tattoo spiders on my body and wear a spider suit when I come into my office and learn how to shoot webs, you know, in real life. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just play Spider-Man, enjoy the game for what it is, and move on. Because it's not an insane investment like all these fucking games seem to think that we want. I'm not looking for a ginormous investment of time. I'm not. I want to play a game, enjoy it, and move on to the rest of my life. You know, just like a movie. When I want to watch a movie, I want to watch that movie, enjoy it, and go on to something else. And if I like the movie, maybe I like more movies down the line, and I would pay more money to see more of them. But I don't need it to be a ginormous sponging up of my time. And it seems like more and more games just feel like that's what they want to be. Well, I don't want you to sponge up my lifetime. I want to enjoy my life outside of just games. This is supposed to be a side diversion, not an investment, you know? Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying that games that are an investment of time are bad. I'm just saying that not every game has to be that. And it seems like recently that's exactly the route we've been going. Every game seems to want to suck up all of your time. That doesn't work. You need to be able to pick and choose. In 1 year, I want 2 games that are incredibly long. Give me Baldur's Gate 3 and, I don't know, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom maybe, right? Those are my 2 long games for the year. And then I want some shorter games. So give me Assassin's Creed Mirage and give me Spider-Man 2. Oh, for variety, I'd like a fighting game, so I'll play Street Fighter 6. What's wrong with that? Instead of, oh, here's a 40-hour game, here's a 70-hour game, here's a 100-hour game, here's an 80-hour game, here's a 60-hour game. How the fuck am I supposed to play all these and enjoy them? Can't. They all cut into each other. So I actually feel that Spider-Man being 30 hours is a good thing. As long as those 30 hours are fun and meaningful and action-packed and they don't get too repetitive and you're always kind of kept on your toes with the plot and maybe the gameplay elements are keep evolving as you unlock new abilities between the two characters and the like, as long as they can keep it fresh and interesting, then that 30 hours is exactly right. But some people disagree. There's some people are so upset. I'm not kidding. So upset. It's only 30 hours? Well, that's bullshit because I just paid $70 for a game that was 147 hours. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, again, everyone can disagree. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. If you're listening to this right now, on demand, obviously you can share your thoughts in the comments on the video. I'd like to hear what you think. Some people in chat are feeling that 30 hours is sufficient. Like Lady just said, 30 hours is decent. Might have other modes like New Game Plus to play it again, right? And then someone actually, Pride Ashitaka says, yeah, 1,000 hours of Tekken 7, only $60. It also depends on the genre, correct? Because you're absolutely right. Like Street Fighter 6, since I bought it in June, how many hours have I played it? I think I'm like 80 hours in on PS5 and like 100 or more hours in on Xbox. So, yeah, I've gotten like 200 hours out of the game already, and I'm probably going to continue to play it, right? So you're absolutely right. Parasolo says 30 hours is the right amount for me. There you go.
Typically helps me more than anything.